I want to start by thanking you guys for being here. This is a great opportunity for us, and we're very appreciative of the coverage for our university and for our football program. National Signing Day is always an exciting time for us and gives us an opportunity to welcome 28 new student athletes to our football program, but more importantly, and sometimes we forget that we are welcoming these 28 young men into our community and our campus. And recruiting has gotten more and more competitive and complex over the last 4, 5, 6 years, and I think our staff has, first off, done a tremendous job identifying character and making sure that we have good people coming to this university. And sometimes it's a really easy thing to assess and evaluate young men on the field and see the way that they may play the game of football, but making sure that we're assessing, evaluating, and doing as much background as we can to get the right student athlete for this university to be able to succeed both on and off the field has been a primary focus for us, not only in this class, but really for our program and our athletic department as a whole. So excited about this group. I think it's going to bring a new energy to our weight room. I had an opportunity to walk through there on the way here. We have a great group coming back off of a very successful and entertaining football season, but it's our job as a staff, as a department, as a university to bring in a better class, a more competitive class, both academically and on the field. And we feel good about this group and where we're at, and excited to welcome these guys to campus. With that, we'll open it up for questions.
Coach, looking at the numbers, a little bit more leaning towards the defensive side of the ball. Is that kind of the game plan going into this recruiting class?
Well, we graduated 22 seniors this year, and I think we graduated some very strong defensive seniors. Not that we didn't on the offense side. We were fortunate to have that group of 22 leave our football program last year, and sometimes that's how the recruiting classes work out. That you look at every year, we're trying to target a number at each position and gauge them where we're at with scholarships and where we're at with position needs. Sometimes certain positions there's a better talent pool, and we felt that there was a real good talent pool in certain positions this year. And defensively we did take a few more kids, but sometimes that's by design. Sometimes that's you have these kids and you have an opportunity to evaluate them, and at the end of the day we have to take the kids that are going to fit our program the best. And we're fortunate to have the guys that we have and that we signed. So.
Coach, how much did you feel like the success of this season kind of tipped the scales in your favor for some of these kids?
Yeah, I don't know if it tips the scales at the end of the day. I think early in the recruiting process it may, as you're getting through your season and having kids commit earlier and earlier. As you start off 5-0 or 6-0 and 7-0, and you have an opportunity to move up in the national rankings, that doesn't hurt your football program. But as we attempt to stress to every one of these guys as they come on campus, don't pick this place to play football. You have to be in love with it. This is a commitment for somebody that's well-rounded. You're moving to this community, and if you're not excited about academics, about the community, and about the football program, you're making the wrong decision. And that's part of what our excitement is today. Is I think we got a group of guys that understand the level of commitment and are excited to be engaged in the community.
What stands out to you about Duluth Denfeld's Eric Nelson?
Yeah, well, Eric was an interesting story for us. We had Eric in camp, and he, first of all, his stature, Eric's a 6'6", lean offensive lineman with really good feet. So those guys are going to jump off the field immediately for you. So we made a connection with Eric early on in the summer. I think he has a really big upside as an offensive lineman, and getting to know him and his family throughout the recruiting process, he's a guy that's going to fit what we're looking for. He's got a really good personality, done a good job leading his football program. I've had an opportunity to watch him play basketball. On the court, he's a leader, and those are the guys we're looking for. But, Eric's length and athleticism is a guy that will develop at the tackle position for us on our offensive line.
Two from Northwestern and Maple. What stands out about Reagan and Brody?
Yeah, well, Reagan I think was our first commit in this class, and he was a guy that we had in camp, and his athleticism right away jumped off the charts for us. And I think both those guys, similar things as far as their character. They're really good people with kind of a hard-nosed attitude on the football field, and they're good students. So those are real similar things as far as those two characters. But Brody, we're going to play on the defense side. We're going to play him at the safety position. I know high school he's primarily a wide receiver, but sometimes, and same thing as you look at our roster right now, or the guys that we signed, we may have leaned a little bit towards the defense side of the football, but a guy like Brody, I think, can transition to the defense side of the football, just the way that he changes direction, he runs well. And you know, Reagan's a natural tailback. That jumped off the page for us right away.
Coach, just talk about, I guess, the local area and how you see the state of football here. It seems like it's always a hotbed for hockey, but in traveling around and seeing all these high schools in the local area, how is the state of football here in northern Minnesota? Yeah,
well, I think you look at last year, and we had some success in Cloquet. We've had success in Hermantown. We've had success in Superior and Northwestern. We've had success in some of the Duluth schools, Denfeld East a couple of years ago. So there's always going to be kids in every part of the state. And for us, we're trying to identify the right kids. And so if we can look at, you know, an 80, 90 mile radius around the city of Duluth and make sure that we're getting the best talent out of that group, we're fortunate. We think we've done that with this class. We think we've done that in the past. So that's always going to be a primary focus. So what's the state of football in northern Minnesota? I think it ebbs and flows just like it does with any sport. Sometimes there's more talent in the area certain years than there is next year. You know, last year again, I think you look back at Cloquet's football team, and they had a lot of guys that could play at our level. This year, Northwestern had a couple kids. Duluth had a kid that we thought we could play at our level, and we're fortunate to get him.
It seems like you talked earlier about the recruiting process and how it's kind of evolved. What have you seen that are some things that kind of pose a challenge for you guys in the last 10 years, especially with, you know, the advancement of like social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's been a challenge, but it's been something that I think our staff in our campus and department always has to keep a pulse on, as far as the competitive nature in kids committing and making decisions has moved up. It's gotten a lot quicker and a lot faster. So our recruiting calendar, our evaluation, and making sure that we're evaluating the kids thoroughly enough, you know, starting right now for next year's class, is always going to be important. And 5 years ago, we weren't in this spot. 5 years ago, we had the majority of our guys on campus in December and January, making those guys offers. This year, you know, I haven't done the numbers, but I would think most of our class was offered in June and July. And so when you look at that, we got to make sure that we're doing our homework on the back end a little bit earlier, which I think our staff has done a phenomenal job with.
Curt, any challenges in the recruiting process here with the shakeup in coaching staff, having to not just put together a recruiting class, but a staff?
Yeah, well, starting with that, we're excited for the guys that had an opportunity to move on. And whenever you have a program with a little bit of success, there's going to be coaches with opportunities to leave, and excited for Noah and Nate. Those are two really good people, two really good friends, and excited for their opportunity to move on. So when you do lose key guys like that are on the road recruiting, that have been building relationships with high school coaches and our incoming class, it does put more pressure on your staff to cover their tracks until you can get other people on board to do that. So I think our staff did a great job this year, making up ground. And again, I think something that helped, something that Sam had touched on, some of our offers were out earlier. So we had built relationships with those kids, but we weren't prospecting a lot of kids at that point. So we just had to make sure we continued to tell those, have a comfort level for those guys to say, hey, our football program is not changing. And again, if you make a decision on one coach or one player or one thing about going to play college football, you're making it for the wrong reasons. And that's been an important piece for us. So it's a big decision for any person to come to campus, and then when you add athletics on top of that, you have to be all in, and it can't be one coach or one assistant coach or one conversation that makes or breaks your decision to make a commitment to move somewhere for 5 years.
Coach, we're talking about recruiting a lot of players, but you're also kind of recruiting some coaches too. You have Chase is coming back on campus, as well as seeing Bolts now joining your staff. Talk about them a little bit, what they really bring to the table for your staff.
Well, let's start with Jason Bolts. Jason Bolts is a young man that 2 years ago came to us and talked about potentially getting into coaching. And for us, that was a real easy decision. To have a guy that has done what he has done for our football program, for our department, for our university over the last 5 years of being on campus, he was an easy hire for us. He was on staff, or he was in our football program. We could, once he graduated, move him up and give him an opportunity to coach. Sometimes that's a tough thing, to go from a player to a coach without a break or without an opportunity to go somewhere else and learn. But Jason's a guy that we have complete confidence in making that transition. He's done a very good job of that over the last month. Chase Vogler for me was my first phone call to prospect Chase and say, Chase, are you interested in coming back? Very similar to Jason. When Chase was here, he gave his blood, sweat, and tears to this university. And we've prided ourselves on making sure that we can stay connected with guys like Chase Vogler, with Jason Baltz. And I know Chase was excited about the opportunity to come back and lead our offense and be part of this university again.
Curt, is there a theme at all for this entire class? I mean, is there a way you could kind of sum up, a couple dozen here? Or are they a fast group, strong group, anything along those lines?
Yeah, well, I think we're always looking for both those, right? You want bigger, faster, stronger, and like we told all of our guys that helped out with recruiting, all of our current roster, that it's our job as coaches to try to out-recruit the next class. That's how you improve your football program. So we feel we got a bigger, faster, stronger class than we have maybe in the past, and now it's our job to develop these guys and make sure that they're bought into UMD football and the culture that we have in our locker room.